All right. So welcome everybody. We are just afternoon here. So I'm going to go ahead and get us rolling a little bit. Thank you all very much for joining us for this month's Ask Mayfield Anything. Excited to talk with our guests here today. And so real quick, as we're going through just some general housekeeping, want to just talk about as we're going through, and if you have questions, this is very much meant to be conversational. Really want to get people's questions, comments, things like that, everything that we can, engage with you on. Want this to be very conversational, not so much all of us talking to you, but rather engaging with you. So as you're going along, feel free to put in questions into the Q&A. Please use the Q&A section, not the chat section. It really helps us keep everything organized a lot better. And so we don't miss your questions or anything like that. And so with that, we'll go ahead and get going. So thanks for joining us. My name is Ryan Mayfield, founder, CEO of Mayfield Renewables. We've been doing this Ask Mayfield Anything series for a while now, and excited to continue on. And today, for my team, Joe Schwartz is joining us. Joe has, how many years of experience? Lots of experience, Joe. You've been in the industry for over 20 years. A lot of you probably recognize Joe as the publisher of Solar Pro magazine and Home Power magazine. And most recently, Joe has joined us here, senior project manager at Mayfield Renewables. So thanks for joining us today, Joe. And then today we have Pete Cleveland from Eagle View. Real quick on Pete's background, started in solar in 2010 and started, have here, focusing on implementing system design standards, process leveraging from previous experience in land survey and heavy site construction. So sounds, about, I don't know, it's a lot different than solar, Pete, but that's great. So you joined Eagle View in 2018. And now you are the vice president of the solar business. So thanks for joining us here today, and excited to learn more about Eagle View's products and kind of how you're integrating that into for solar contractors.
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. Happy to be here.
Cool. And then Spencer Oberon, co-founder of Interflow. Found out Spencer grew up not too far from where I sit, so that was pretty exciting. And big college football fan, so we have that in common. Where we both have love for the Oregon State team, and so we'll try and be kind to Joe, because Joe's kind of on the opposite end of all that. And so we'll try and not gang up on Joe too much on that one here today. But Spencer co-founded Interflow in 2018, and with an effort to streamline residential solar sales and getting more modules on the roofs and making solar more affordable. So Spencer, thanks for joining us today.
Happy to be here. Go Beavs.
Thanks for getting that in. All right, real quick, for those of you who maybe aren't super familiar with Mayfield Renewables, want to just give you a little bit of a rundown. We are a technical consultancy. We have three main business lines. So we do historically system design and engineering has been what we've done, our bread and butter. I've been doing that since 2007. And then we are also doing technical content strategy and production, where we work with manufacturers, we work with EPCs, and working with them producing technical content similar to what Joe had been doing with Solar Pro magazine. And then education and training, things like this. We really, education and training is the heart of who we are, what I've been doing for many, many years. And so love going out and doing different types of education. And this just kind of falls into all of that. So that's a little bit about us. If you don't know about us, feel free to visit our website, and you can learn more about us. So real quick, so here's what we're here today. So Joe, if you want to tell us a little bit about kind of what the topic we have at hand and what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks, Ryan. It's great to have you with us, Spencer and Pete as well. And so when Ryan was going through the different work that Mayfield does and our clients, the work is really diverse and the clients are really diverse. So we're working with EPCs on design and engineering projects. We're working with manufacturers on cost benchmarking projects, for example. And so we're sort of inserting ourselves or being inserted at different parts of different clients' workflows. And so we have, I think, a pretty unique perspective on how efficient or inefficient workflows are and how important good technology or software is to making those efforts run smoothly. And so Pete and I have had some great conversations about what EagleView, their platform and services offer to streamline site surveys, installation ready designs, and then with True Design, their new tool, just to streamline a lot of that kind of initial design process. And then Spencer and I met more recently, but he's has even a kind of higher level or base level, foundational level of integration. So to peel different parts of software out that companies don't need. And so I think that I'm really excited about this conversation today because we have two colleagues that are really leading the industry in a way that's going to help drive out soft costs and it impacts so many businesses that some of the tools they're bringing to the table.
Great. Yeah, thanks for that. And so we can get into a little bit about EagleView and Interflow and kind of do some introductions for both of those, just to kind of set the table for those of you on the call. So Pete, you want to give us a little bit about EagleView?
Yeah. So EagleView started in the year 2000 as pictometry. In 2013, they were acquired by EagleView. Since then, we've been servicing the tons of different industries, including insurance, all types of construction, also government use cases like tax assessment, things of that nature. For solar, there's some of our products here, which I'll get into in a minute, but, just to talk about sort of the breadth of what EagleView really does, we design and develop our own proprietary camera systems. These camera systems are installed in a fleet of over 130 aircraft that are strategically deployed around the US at different times and places to capture ultra high resolution aerial imagery. And when I say high resolution, the pixels within our imagery could be as small as a quarter on the ground. And if you were to compare that to, say, satellite, the satellite pixel could be the size of like a basketball on the ground. So very high resolution. And this imagery we capture at multiple different perspectives. So from the top-down perspective as well as angled perspectives. And what that does, it gives us the ability to understand where every pixel sits on Earth. So with that, we have the ability to not only identify objects within our imagery, we also have the ability to extract very precise three-dimensional data from that imagery. So there's a lot going on behind the scenes at EagleView. But for solar, these are really our three areas of products that we offer into the solar industry. So it really all starts with this high resolution aerial imagery. You can see some samples there on the left-hand side of the slide. Top down, multiple perspectives. That imagery is used by both residential and commercial as well as utility scale customers. For residential, where that imagery is really helpful is qualifying leads and all throughout the entire planning and installation process. So understanding roof access points, conduit run locations, identifying where the electric meter is, and all sorts of really good information in that imagery. Now, like I mentioned, we also extract very precise data from this imagery, and that's really where you get into this center section. So for solar, we have two primary products. The first one is Essentials Plus. It's basically a 3D model of a roof. Very precise. All the line work is also classified, so we know what every type of line is. You're going to get higher accuracy and more consistency than what you would get from sending a human on the roof with a tape measure. And you would get equal results to what you would get from a drone, but you don't have to go out to the site to fly anything. We've flown all the imagery. We extract this data basically as our demand signals come in or customer orders come in. Now, within the last 18 months, we also have a new product, which is Inform Advanced. So not only are we creating a 3D model of the roof, we create a 3D model of the surrounding shade scene. And that gives us the ability to very accurately measure solar access values of every 6 inches of every single roof facet. The accuracy of those shade values are within 0 to 1% as identified in an accuracy verification we did with DNVGL, comparing us to a handheld sun eye device in a controlled environment. So 3D model of the roof, full shade analysis, you don't have to go out to the site to get it. Now, these capabilities have really led us or created the opportunity for EagleView to really offer a workflow solution for solar. Very excited about this. It actually just got released today. It's called True Design. And what True Design is a web-based 3D viewer design interface, which accesses all of our very accurate and precise data that we've extracted from the aerial imagery. So True Design takes advantage of these data sets that eliminate the need for an external site visit. And what it does is it provides automated module layouts on top of that. So it's very exciting to see sort of all of these technologies come to the point that we're at today. And today, launching True Design, we're seeing getting very good input and feedback from early adopters and early beta users on it. And the intention of True Design is it gives you the ability to sell from an install-ready design, bridging the gap between sales and operations. So the way that works is you order True Design when an appointment confirms. We deliver access to True Design. You get all the information that you need, design information to generate a proposal or contract. The customer signs the contract. You skip the external site visit, and then you download all the information that you need for planning and permitting and things of that sort. So full CAD files with solar modules on it. Very excited about that solution. Just released today. So.
Yeah, I saw you gave I saw you at NABCEP at the NABCEP conference and got a little walkthrough on the True Design, and I got super excited about that on when I'm thinking about our design team and what we're going through with creating the DWGs, and so that was great. And so one of the things I should have mentioned earlier, full disclosure, Mayfield Renewables, our design team has been using EagleView as one of our resources for a long time, actually long enough where I still have a folder in my email that's labeled pictometry.
You're OG.
So we've been using it for a while. So thought I probably should just throw that out there for everybody, just kind of a full disclosure. I did have a question though, and a couple questions for you, Pete. And this is one that's talking with other people. It's always been one of those, like, flying planes sounds expensive, and like getting that the accuracy is awesome, all that stuff is great, but it just seems just crazy expensive to be flying planes. I guess, can you talk about that a little bit? I mean, and constantly having to update things, new construction, getting out, keeping everything up to date. How are you guys going out? Are you doing it do you have a schedule where you're going out and doing things, updating your flyovers or something like that?
Yeah, it's a very common question, and it's a good question, Ryan. And yes, flying planes could be very expensive, and even just operationally, if you think about all the coordination that's required there. So if you really just consider the breadth of the industries that EagleView services, like I mentioned, it's insurance carriers, 9 of the top 10 insurance carriers, somewhere around 50,000 roofing contractors, tax assessment, local governments, 911 operators, emergency responders, and you just think about all these different use cases around the country, just leveraging this imagery and this data. What we really do is we very strategically plan where we fly and when and how we fly. So we can fly at different heights, capture different types of imagery. And then we really try to, we study demand signals from the market. So sometimes we have contracted capture where people say, I need this county flown, or I need this pipe corridor flown, and we'll send a plane on their behalf. But many other times it's just, we refer to it as opportunistic planning. So we look at demand signals in the market. We look where our imagery is maybe getting older, where there's a lot of new home construction, where storms have been hitting more recently, and then we plan like that. So certain areas of the country, you'll see we've flown twice a year. Other areas of the country, you might see, hey, we didn't fly northern Nebraska since 2017. So it really, we focus on concentrations of single family residences and market demand signals to very strategically plan where those planes are sent. So hopefully that helps.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. And then I was actually a question that I just thought of as you were talking about the informed advance, having that resolution and being able to do the shading analysis, that's pretty awesome. I was just curious on, are all of those, and we're looking at that image, so it looks like the shading is maybe self-imposed from that roof. Are you able to do any like external shading? Does that take into account if we know there's trees around or anything like that? Do you guys are using LiDAR or anything like that?
Yeah, so and to be clear, I mean, we've flown a lot of the LiDAR that you'll see out there as being publicly available. LiDAR can be great, but it also can not be great. There's different qualities of LiDAR. So we don't use LiDAR to generate our shade scenes, even though we can fly it and we have flown it. What we're doing is we're actually extracting the location of every pixel. So when we see the trees and surrounding shade scenes like houses and water towers, we're looking at the pixels that comprise all of those objects, and then we generate a full 3D model. So it's called a digital surface model. So the entire shade scene around that subject property that you're not seeing here is modeled very precisely. So it captures anything that we see in the imagery from all of those multiple perspectives, and it recreates a shade scene. So it's essentially recreating a digital twin of that property. Okay. And then the sun path, tracing the sun path, recording shade values, that stuff's pretty straightforward, all based on sun position.
Okay, cool. Okay, I'll keep us moving along, even though I probably could ask you a ton more questions here, but we've got more stuff to get through, so I'll save some of those. All right, so Spencer, why don't you walk us through Interflow and kind of how Interflow's into this conversation?
Yeah, I was actually hoping you'd stay on EagleView for a while. I was super enthralled there for a second. I was like, no, let's keep this going. Interflow is the platform for the solar industry for sales and financing, or not financing, I'm reading the thing, for sales all the way through PTO, so installs, site surveys, I mean, everything you can imagine. People come to us and they're like, oh, so you guys are a proposal tool? No. I was like, oh, you guys are a scheduling tool? No. You guys are a CRM? No. So I'm going to explain to you what we are, okay? So if you look at all of these, you see the scheduling, and you see you've got like Sales Rabbit, and you've got Five9, and Spadio, and Canvas, and you go to the design tools, and you got EagleView, you've got SolarGraph, you got Solo, right? You go to the financing, you see all those, and you go, and this is just a small segment, right, of what happens when you do solar. So if you're a solar installer, for example, we just signed up an installer in the Northeast. They have 11 different softwares, and then on top of that, some manual processes that they do. That's pretty indicative of the solar space in the residential space. Anywhere from 7 to 14 different apps people are using. So, and these apps don't talk to each other very well. So you'll hop in one app, you'll jump out of the other app, you'll do some manual entry, duplicate records, and you'll go through this entire process. And somebody will use 11 apps to do a solar job. So when we come in, it's kind of like debt consolidation, but tech consolidation. So we will find all the stuff that you're doing as an installer or a sales dealer, but we focus on installers. And we say, all right, what are the things that you're doing well? Well, you wouldn't be able to do 150 installs a month if you weren't doing something right. So we find that, whatever that is, maybe you're built around Salesforce. Cool. We take Salesforce and we enhance it, and we actually help you use Salesforce even better and get more out of it. And then all the stuff that you're doing that you don't want to do, that you don't know how to do, or that you don't want to keep doing anymore, we will snap in our Legos, and I'll talk about that in a second, and create a fluid process. So you can see we connect all of these tools together. So instead of hopping in and out of 11 different apps, you actually will do all of your work in Interflow. So your Interflow can be powered by EagleView, right, in their true design, but you won't hop out of Interflow to go into EagleView to do that, right? You won't hop out to go in and work with a scheduling tool or a CRM, right? And we also have our own tools as well, in-house tools. So you can use our tool that we have, kind of think of like Costco. You got the Kirkland brand, right? You've got then the name brand right next to each other. You can use our tool or you can use a name brand tool. We don't care. Doesn't change how we monetize the system. It's all about taking your sales and fulfillment culture and then enhancing that and providing efficiencies so we can get glass on the roof faster. So we really love working with groups like EagleView that are awesome. EagleView is an amazing partner that allows us to shrink the duration of installs. And so you'll see as we go through this process and we talk through things, but that's what Interflow does. And so we want you to think of software in the new concept, the new light. You're building your platform, right? Tools will come and go, right? There's going to be new scheduling tools, new finance companies, new CRMs, new reporting tools, commission tools, job costing tools. I mean, you name it, right? As the industry continues to mature, these tools will continue to get better and better and better. M&A will happen, consolidation will happen. You don't want to be tied to just, everything you're going to do is just on Aurora. Cool. What we say is build your platform and then you can drop in and out the tools that you want that are specific and germane to you and your process. And what we love about EagleView is that they've created an amazing tool in their true design is where it actually helps provide a lot of efficiencies throughout their process. And we see them as a mainstay in the solar industry. And so we're excited to have an integration with them. So that's a little bit about Interflow and who we are and what we do.
Great. Awesome. Thank you. So we can jump into and we can kind of the meat of what we were wanting to talk to today. So kind of some of those challenges that you all are seeing and kind of just giving us that overview. So Pete, I think you were gonna walk us through that.
Thanks, Rod. So I think it should be clear already when we think about streamlining a workflow, getting to install faster, reducing costs. Technology is the answer. But what is technology solving for? So given this opportunity today, as Spencer and I were thinking about really what makes a difference and what matters, we've broken down today's challenges really into these three pieces that we're going to get into in a little bit more. And all of these three challenges, from soft costs to scaling with labor shortages to long project timelines, these are all things that can very much be solved for by technology and improved by technology. I mean, even just as Spencer was talking about, a single platform where everything's plugged in, and just think about those efficiencies. And yes, you are getting the glass on the roof faster. You don't need as many people to do it, and that overhead comes down. So, before we get into really where technology is the answer and opportunities for improvement, some tactical real life examples, we felt it was appropriate really just frame the problem that technology is solving for. So
yeah. So on soft costs, we can go to the next slide, but if you look at this, I mean, depending upon the numbers, in the group, I mean, I think soft costs cannot go all the way up to 75% or more of a job. And really, as the hardware costs are continuing to go up now because of production issues and COVID and interest rates and everything else in between, I think people just want to make more money. But like as those prices continue to increase, these soft costs, they're actually not going down, they're actually increasing as well. And so if we look at all the different breakdowns of these soft costs, there's a lot of room for improvement where we can drop and lower the soft cost. And even with rising panel costs, we can actually deploy more solar while lowering the cost of solar. And a lot of these soft costs, if you look at them as well, they actually are directly correlated to duration. And so the more soft costs you have, the actual kind of longer your jobs are taking. So if we can shrink duration, we're going to shrink soft costs. If we can shrink soft costs, we're going to shrink duration. And we think that software, although it's not a silver bullet, we think it's a pretty big one. And that we'll talk more about that.
Yeah, and we're, I was going to say we see a lot of it in the permitting and inspection side. So it's interesting just seeing all these different aspects and kind of where your tools kind of come into play. And so, yeah, we've been talking with people about this for years. And so soft cost seems like it's been kind of that thing that's has always been a bugger for everybody. And as you were saying, Spencer, as our hardware costs are actually increasing, as we're seeing longer lead times, things like that, it's just exasperating everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if I could piggyback on that, you know, and this might be a little bit provocative to say, but I've spent a lot of time in solar myself, and I've seen it firsthand. But generally speaking, solar really is still relatively new compared to other industries. It is a new industry, and I think, you know, when you look at these soft costs, the breakdowns, and just really understand what the process is that are leading or feeding into these soft costs, I think it would be behoove of the industry to really look at the maturity of that process and how disparate are all of your different systems. And I feel like there's just so many opportunities to introduce a level of maturity into that solar process and solar workflow that directly impact these soft costs. So by creating efficiencies, so to Spencer's point, time is associated to these costs because of labor, right? And you think about all of the people doing the work, and if this one's doing it poorly and the one behind them has to check it and redo it, and then somebody down the line has to do it again, it's just all of these costs add up, and it isn't abundantly clear. But if you would maybe just step back and look at the entire end-to-end process and recognize that pretty immature as it sits today, you compare it to other industries like auto manufacturers, like from start of the assembly line to the end of the assembly line, how fast did that car come out, right? And it's really, you know, that those processes have been refined to a point where you have robots putting in bolts, and it's just extremely fast how they're able to process it and stay competitive in their costs. And the time in solar is now to really look at our processes and look for those efficiency gains that could be had that bring down these soft costs and impact some of the other challenges that we're going to get into today too.
Yeah, and just the interconnection of them all as well. And I'm just sitting here thinking of supply chain issues lead into change orders, which lead into changes in permitting, which then the installers. So it just all rolls into each other, and so being able to address them is an important thing. Sure. Cool.
Yeah, and I'll kick us off on this one. I mean, because it really ties into what I was just talking about. So the soft costs are labor, right? And according to SIA, we saw 30% growth last year in residential solar, but I don't think that we saw 30% more employees come on the market, right? And historically speaking, for solar contractors, they have this very linear growth where for X employees, I could do X installs. Right, and those two numbers are tied and correlated, but that's not scalable, right? And I guess what I'm getting at here is that we can't keep just throwing people at the problem. And here's a few problems just outlined. We have this aging workforce. Recruiting efforts are very difficult, especially I think a lot of businesses saw those challenges in the last year with a quote unquote great resignation that we saw. And then just training, education, right? So skilled labor is another problem. And then, Ryan, I think you had a comment here when we spoke earlier, but there's also just this problem of lack of diversity. So, for the industry to grow, to meet the demands and also the goals that we've set forth for solar, I think we really need to start looking at how we start solving these problems with technology instead of throwing people at the problem. Empowering the employees that you have today to do more. And again, that's like just a perfect plug for technology, is do more with less.
Yeah, I'd like to piggyback on that as well, Pete. So like, if you think from an installer's perspective, because like we work inside installers' offices, like our people will go on site and we go on installs and we go on sales calls. We really try to understand our installers as well as we can. And this is what I like to kind of give this example, but let's say an installer has the ability to do 3 installs a day. That's their install cadence, right? But because of problems that happen top of funnel with the sales reps, because of technology that doesn't talk well together, sales reps aren't gathering the right information. The communication between the tools isn't good, so there's manual entry and things like that. But now what we're doing is we are this bandwidth, right? We can do 3 installs of cadence worth on a daily basis. It's now being gummed up because of all these top of funnel issues. And so out of every 100 deal submissions, we routinely see about 50 of those we call incomplete deal submissions, where someone has to go back and they have to go check something, have to redo something, have to create a change order, they have to do something. By doing that, they actually slow down the cadence. And with the current labor force that the installer has, now their cadence moves to 1 install a day. But by doing 1 install a day, now what happens? They're not bringing in enough revenue because now they have cash flow issues. So what do? They raise their prices. They raise their prices. Well, what's the answer over here? I need to hire more people, right? So then they hire more people. And to Pete's comment is just like, I'll just say it, I'll give you an arbitrary number, but for every 5 people for overhead, I'm going to get 1 install, right? So they're like, well, I want to do 5 installs, so I need 15 people. And they just, 1, it's not sustainable, but 2, it lowers margin. We need to be getting more installers in the space and making them profitable, not shrinking, not kicking them out because they can't handle the cash flow issues and things like that because they have a poor process. And so the labor shortages increases duration, which increases costs, which increases more labor, or the need for more labor. And but we don't have that, right? Because we have labor shortages. So again, if we can have the same amount of inputs, but with software properly deployed and utilized, because you can have software and not utilize it correctly, but properly deployed and utilized, you can have that same amount of inputs and you can actually have an increase in outputs. And so that's what we're trying to leverage here.
That's interesting. And so it's kind of got my mind. I mean, we're, I think all businesses, are looking at their process and how do you make that better? And then for me, one of the things that really hits home is this whole retraining thing, trying to look at getting people trained up, and the pandemic impacts are real. And it's just interesting to see, and how contractors are going about that. So I know that's, trying to find ways of using software, trying to find ways of using technology to do that is an important thing. So that's just interesting to hear your guys' input on that.
Yeah, and I'd like to add, we've talked a lot about, I guess, poor software integration, extending project timelines. And, we saw when we were looking at those soft cost numbers that 18% of the typical soft cost for a residential install is customer acquisition. And so every week that project cycle gets longer, there's more opportunity for unhappy customers, and that just ripples through the business development side of an organization. Customer fall off is a big issue as timelines get longer, and then referrals as well, right? So that's the cheapest customer you're going to get is from a strong referral from a good past business. So big impacts on business development as well, those long project timelines.
Yeah, when I saw those soft cost numbers, because those aren't the ones we came up with, but saw those numbers, and I think that 18% is way too low. I see what sales reps make and also what acquisition costs are, and I would dare say that it's between 25 and 35% versus 18%. And then as you have a pull-through rate, there's a lot of installers out there that have 50% pull-through rate, and we have a lot of installers we work with. They're like, yeah, we got a pretty good pull-through rate, 65%. I'm like, that's not. You're leaving 35% of your jobs that you've paid for site surveys, for a bunch of other, design and all these things, all these costs that you just paid for that you are not going to get back. That's from signed contract. And that's because of duration. I mean, not all of it. A lot of that is because of duration. If you take 6 months to install, someone else is going to either install them or they're just going to drop off or whatever. And I mean, this slide here is kind of indicative of that. If you look at the top, the dollar sign or the dollar stacks, right? The longer it takes, the less money the installer makes, right? You can also see the homeowner, they're happy. By the longer it takes, they're not happy and they're canceling, right? And then if you look underneath that, like these are the kind of the proposed timelines, but we're crossing those out because really with a gummed up process, poor communication, this is really what you're experiencing. I'd also like to talk about here the negative impact of lengthy project timelines is due to data fidelity. If your software that you're using for design and the software that you're using for job costing and for proposals and in even canvassing or lead generation, like knowing what's coming down the pipe, if your data is not flowing through and it's not accurate, How are you supposed to make accurate decisions about your business if you don't have accurate data and you can't trust it? We had just in our own business, we were using ClickUp when we left ClickUp, but our reports were all set up wonky, and we're looking at these and we're like, this doesn't make any sense. The numbers, I mean, even we face it every day. And it's like, well, I can't trust these numbers. Because I can't trust those numbers, I can't make a great decision on how to allocate your resources and if I need a pivot or not. So that's, data fidelity along with the length of timeline contributes to the length of timelines as well. But the longer it takes, the less money everybody makes and the angrier customers are, and then the less referrals you get. It's just it's a vicious cycle.
And I'm curious, I don't know if you guys have, you're working with contractors a lot and you're talking to them. So, the supply chain issues are a real thing. And, I think about ESS systems a lot, battery systems, and, there, you can go along and basically you're being told you're going to get this product when we give it to you, pretty much. And so I guess I'm just curious if you've gotten any feedback from your contractors on kind of how that supply chain issue, falls into this, and especially on this customer satisfaction type thing, and how they're managing that.
Well, supply chain issues is a real problem, even for the big boys. And so, I mean, one of the things that we see in software right now is that you will sell a certain panel at the very beginning of a job. By that time, because it takes so long, when I say so long, it could take, I'm not talking 6 months, maybe it just takes 30, 40, 50 days. But by the time you get to the spot where you actually can build the job, you've permitted, a Q cell, but now you've got to use a Jinko because the Q cell is not there anymore. So then you got to go back and you got to create a change order. And then you got to, hey, sorry, Mr. Customer, Mrs. Customer, we don't have this anymore. Hopefully they don't cancel. If they don't cancel, you got to repeat that process again. Right. If you repeat that process again, we've seen this happen 2 or 3 or 4 times in a job. So with software, we're trying to get ahead of that, and make sure that is your equipment, is it reserved? Can we reserve it? And then if we do need to create a change order, that it's a really quick process, and so it's a day turnaround instead of a 2-week turnaround. Sure. So, but I've seen lots of issues come up because of not just raising prices, but duration and everything else because of the product shortages.
Yeah. Do you have, Spencer, somebody asked the question, average timelines for residential from selling to install? What have you been seeing? And I'm presuming those are just, as we've been talking about this entire time, they've just been growing. Do you have a sense of what those have been and where they're going?
Yeah, I do. They're going up. For all the people not using Airflow, they're really bad. No, but they are going up across the board everywhere. I mean, if anyone knows, each municipality, HJ is different. There's some places you can get same day permits. Other places take 6 weeks for permitting. But if you take permitting aside, right, and take that data set out, what you have is the process, because of equipment specifically, the process is getting longer. What we've seen and because I'm trying to answer this question in a succinct way, but it's hard because they're also different. If I were to just give you an average of a good company, probably around 45 days right now in a lot of markets. We do have some markets, we have some installers like in Vegas, they're installing in 5 days. Yeah, because they have product, they have great relationships with the utilities, and they know their utility really well. For example, all this installer does is work in this Las Vegas market. That's all they do. So they know it forward and backwards. But you have other installers that will work in 20 markets. And so now they're using,
have that luxury, right?
Yeah, they don't have they don't have the local knowledge. They don't have the local relationships. And because of that, because still a lot of this is the good old boys. Like, hey, I know Bob down at the permitting. So anytime I send Bob one, he's going to get it done faster. That still exists today. Trying to get rid of that with Orange Button and trying to really streamline it through technology. Well, actually, Solar App, not Orange Button, but Solar App. And it's a joint venture that we're in with Solar Success and a bunch of other software companies building out the applications that anybody can use for free. But yeah, so I would say 45 days. Good installers are doing about 30 days right now, but there's a lot of installers 60 to 90 days.
Okay. Good stuff. Okay, let's keep moving on so we can make sure that we hit all the points we want to talk about here today.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
so-
we just, oh, go ahead, Pete.
You got it, man.
I was just going to say, we were just talking about technology and how it can save the day. And I think we've already hit on all of these, how we can grow without hiring and lower the costs and enable faster lead to PTO times. And we'll talk even more about that right now. So
Okay.
let's hit the next one.
Okay.
Yeah, so we felt like, you know, let's use some like real life examples here, right, of lowering soft costs. We know this is a major challenge. I think I've heard way too many times soft costs as being referred to as stubborn, but really I think there's an opportunity to add more maturity into the process. And one of the ways that EagleView does that is enabling virtual processes. So if it's looking at a subject property with from different perspectives from aerial imagery, or eliminating an external site visit with a data set, or even optimizing, you know, the solar sail with automated, accurate designs, you know, eliminating just the act of an external site visit can impact the solar workflow by up to 2 weeks. And if you think of the costs and time associated with that 2 weeks in that process, as a very tangible way to lower those soft costs. And the last point that I want to make, and Spencer hit on this, garbage in, garbage out. Accuracy is key here, right? So we believe, and we not only do we practice, and we also tell our customers about a concept referred to as total quality management. It was developed in the 50s, adopted by all the leading industries out there. But one of the principles of total quality management is that quality cannot be inspected out of a product, it must be built into the product. So if you do it right the first time and you do it accurately, you eliminate all that waste and rework afterwards. So many opportunities with remote processes to lower soft costs, but accuracy is key. Don't do it cheap, don't do it dirty just to get it done quickly to come back and do it again. You're just layering up time and you're layering up costs there. So that's an example for how EagleView can help customers lower their soft costs. Do it right the first time.
I agree with that. And I think there's a nice little litmus test here for all you business owners out there. If there's a black and white decision, right, that you're making with human beings and having a human being check that, then I propose that there's improvements to be made there. Software can do that. So any black or white decision in your business, what we like to do is we like to automate that, and we take your rules, whether that's financing rules or whether that's product rules or adder rules or travel rules. I mean, whatever it is, anything that's a yes or a no, this happens, logic tree, then do this, automate the heck out of that. And then anything that's gray area, get a human being in front of it and get their eyes on it. And then we actually can push that to the front of the line, because right now, let's say that you have 50 things, a task you got to do a day. Well, if 40 of them are black and white ones, you're actually just wasting your time when you could be spending and making your greatest contribution to your business on focusing on those 10 that are the gray area. And then we can automate the other 40 through software. And again, EagleView is a perfect example of that. Like traditionally, you'll have someone that will use 3 or 4 tools to do what EagleView is doing with Interflow with one tool, right? And so getting the accurate data from the very beginning with the true design and getting all the way through the process, that saves a lot of time, and it also creates accurate data. And then it also creates more instances where we, with that accurate data, have black and white decisions instead of gray decisions, which again speeds up efficiencies and pull-through rate.
Nice. Cool. So how about the growth without hiring?
Yeah, so we touched on this, you know, as one of the big problems out there is just labor available. And I think Spencer just gave a really good example of how Interflow helps with that. If you have those black and white decisions, that's an opportunity for automation, right? And I mean, that's, you know, technology. That's why we have technology, to replace mundane tasks, to improve quality. And really, I hit on it earlier. It's don't throw people at the problem, you know, and that accurate and consistent data being leveraged in your workflow, it allows for that automation, right? So you have trustworthy data coming into your system. That's something that, you know, that EagleView offers. But when that accurate and consistent information is plugged into a platform like Enterflow that can layer the process automation on it and the form creation and all those other parts, you just replaced the need to hire more people for that problem. So again, technology is really the answer for many things, but especially when it comes to solving problems and not just throwing people at the problem. And I think, you know, that's an area where Enterflow just shines extremely well. So Spencer, I'd like to hear what you have to say about that one.
I was actually going to just say I concur and ditto. I mean, all the things that I've said before. I mean, Pete just summed it up really well. But if it's black and white, let software do it, and then use your manpower and woman power, people power, right? Use that to focus on the hard things. But I get this question all day long from my family members or from, you know, people I work with, and I'll be like, oh, so busy today, so busy, such a crazy day, worked for 12 hours, so busy. Did you move the needle? No, actually I didn't. I was just super busy. If we have software to take out the busyness, that we can focus on what's essential and then what's meaningful. And if we can do that, then we can have our greatest level of contribution without having to hire more people. We can just take our people, have software augment them, and then allow them to do the things that matter most.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and being busy is easy. Moving the needle is maybe not so easy. So focusing in on those, that's a good one, Spencer.
Yeah, and I mean, really what we're talking about, all of these things are connected. I know we separated the problems as three different pieces of soft cost, scaling, and time to install, but really what we're talking about is labor and time and all these manual mundane tasks that we're doing. And when you don't do them accurately, somebody has to come behind you and check it and redo it. So all of this is helping to create, to really compress that project cycle. And Spencer's going to get into some examples there. But you know, just the way that we can do this, some very tactical examples is, like I mentioned, you don't need to do an external site visit many times with EagleView data. So why do them at all? You might still need to do an internal site visit, but an internal site visit can be done at night when the homeowner's home, right? So the average site visit is taking contractors about 2 weeks to get done. And when you eliminate that, you just cut 2 weeks off of your process. And that's just like one very simple tactical example. And at times, maybe you still need that external site visit. It's a terracotta roof, and you got to see if there's moisture, and you got to get out there and lift up a tile. But to Spencer's point, it's applying the force where it's needed. You know, don't put a process in place that you do everything every time because that's what you do. No. Do the things that you need to do when it's required, but don't do everything every time. You know, so that's a real tactical example of just the site visit alone. If you don't need to do it, then don't do it. But if you do need to do it smart. Be smart about it, right? And there's many technologies out there, and of course EagleView is one, and I'm biased there, but there's many technologies out there that just eliminate some of those mundane steps and just compress those project cycles. And you know, automation, and I'll let Spencer cover that part.
Yeah, there's just a couple pieces there that I'd like to highlight. I was a sales rep. I started my solar career with Vivint Solar back in 2013. Either you love them or hate them, so don't hate me if you don't love them. But I started in 2013, opened one of their first offices in Southern California, and I probably sold 400 or 500 deals myself, like personally. And one of the things that always held up my deals was like a re-roof or an MPU. It had to have somebody come out and look at it. I had to someone come out and inspect the roof. But and then it created bottom of funnel issues that I could actually solve top of funnel. So what Enterflow can do, actually, you can actually set up, and we can't, this is just an example, but we can't solve all bottom of funnel issues top of funnel upstream, right? But I'll give you an example. All right, if this house has 100 amps and I know that they need more than a 4 kilowatt system, then I can automatically flag that with an MPU without ever having an electrician look at it, right? That's just black and white logic. If I look at the roof, the ref looks at the roof and there's 4 layers of compounder shingle, 100% can just say, hey, let's get a new re-roof. There's certain things, again, black and white issues that with the proper training and questions up front, you can actually do that with with software, and you can automate a lot of these things. We're doing even stuff beyond that because that involves a sales rep, but we're pulling data right now about the home attributes of a house. So we actually know when it was built. We know how old the roof is, right? Or have a really good idea of how old it is. And if it's in with a certain window, we can actually flag that for a re-roof or flag that for an MPU. And we can do certain things there so we can streamline the process. So do more with less.
Nice.
So I'm going to talk about this. This is a very unsexy thing to look at. This is kind of like what the process is today. And you'll see that these are actually different design, or these are actual different tools. You won't see my cursor, but like, so someone will start out with this is a very indicative of a lot of companies. And I'll just use a door knocking approach. It could be high level if you're doing internet leads or things like that. But if a canvassing approach, someone will use something in a canvassing tool, and then they'll use a canvassing tool. So they'll be in one app. Sometimes this canvassing tool doesn't talk to their front end CRM or their back end CRM. So they don't have an integration. So if they do have an integration, push those leads in there, but they usually don't have a push-pull relationship. So they're not getting all the information. The setter's not getting all the information that's going to the CRM. Or they'll put it in manually. And there's tons of companies that will go into Salesforce manually and create sales opportunities and go that route with their sales manager. That's their job, right? And then they'll use a different tool for scheduling. They'll use Setmore, or they'll use Schedulo or whatever it is. And then you'll see, if you go throughout this process, there's probably 7 or 8 or 10 different apps that people are using. They're hopping in and out, right? And then when they go to the house, they'll sell the deal and they'll use one design tool, but then it will get redesigned by the installer in another design tool because they don't trust the fidelity and the production of the first design tool. And then after they do that, then they'll create a change order, and then they go back and start this process over again, and they'll create a change order. And they're sending documents, and these, like, DocuSign gets in spam folders and things like that, and people can't find it, and weird stuff happens when you're sending documents in a weird way. Then they have the site survey, and then if we follow this whole process, I mean, we could talk through all of it, but for sake of time, there's jumping in and out, and every time you move from one process to the other, there's loss. If we were to look at this like as a website, every time you have a click, you lose part of your audience. Every time you jump from one process to the other, you actually have potentially loss. So you start out with 100 customers, but you're only going to end up with 10 at the very end. That's kind of what we see. 100 leads come in, 10 signed deals come out, not even installs, because then you'll get 60% of those. So you get 6 installs for every 100 leads that come in industry wide. So if you're looking at this, this is kind of the current state of affairs, and there's a ton of inefficiency here. So if you go to the next slide, and this is kind of the recap. Like, all of this stuff up front on the top can live in Interflow right there. And then you have the design request actually happens with EagleView. So that's not right there, but we have a little green spot between appointment scheduled and design request, or design request and financing. But EagleView would do their true design. It all would flow into financing, docs, contract. The site survey is done by EagleView, change orders, contract reviews all done in Interflow, final designs all done by EagleView, because it's the same design, and it goes all the way because the data is right the first time. So you're able to cut out so many spots of inefficiencies, and then you're also able to create a higher pull-through rate and shorten duration. And by doing that, you're going to get all the fun buzzwords like more referrals, better rep retention, and all that stuff. But you can see how this process is a lot simpler. Now, instead of using 8 or 9 different tools, they're using 3. They're using EagleView, they're using Interflow, and they're using a CRM, right? And Interflow could be the CRM as well, but I would say 60, 70% of our customers still use their CRMs because they enjoy them and we don't make them switch. So this just kind of shows you like a real life example. Like, if you do this, there's an opportunity for 20 to 80% efficiencies in businesses if you employ the right tools. Now, I'm not saying that Interflow is the only tool out there that you can use. There's lots of great tools out there that you can use with EagleView. The secret is to talking with someone, doing a business process analysis, understanding what your business really looks like, and then saying, is my baby ugly? And if it is, that's cool. And then figuring out how you can tighten that up.
That's great.
Yeah, I think, just going back to one of my earlier comments, I believe that, generally speaking, I'm not saying this is every contractor out there, but generally speaking, I think that the solar workflow is pretty immature, and it's not necessarily the contractor's fault. I think there has been a lack of technology to support these processes in the past. And you know, it's really the connectivity of these technologies. It's the data being passed through them. It's the consistency and accuracy of that data, which really empowers, you know, these processes that just eliminate waste, eliminate the time and cost associated with all of that waste. And when you do that, and again, coming back to total quality management, it's the customer at the end that benefits. It's the homeowner that sees the benefits. And that's why we're all here. I know, you know, solar is our, you know, this is why we have a career, but we're here because it's about the homeowner getting solar on their house. And that's what matters at the end. And everything else in between does not matter to them, right? They want to get solar, and when it's on the roof, they're happy. Everything else in between does not matter. So I think, you know, the faster, easier, and better we can do that along the way is really benefiting that homeowner at the end. And it is a new world. These technologies do exist. The platform like Enerflow that plugs everything in, the accurate plug data being, you know, fed into that from EagleView. It's these types of technologies that enable these ideal workflow solutions or situations.
I'm gonna come up here. We have a couple good questions. I want to bring up these key takeaways, but we're running up on time. And so I want to make sure I ask these couple questions while I'll leave this up on the screen and folks can read this. But one of the questions was, you know, given how lean a lot of EPCs, general contractors are running, how is Enerflow and EagleView, how are you getting those folks up to speed on using these tools?
Yeah, I'd love to do a little plug here. It's like a marriage, it's like a relationship. If you've got one person that's all in and the other person's not, it's not going to work very well. It won't last very long. And so like on Enerflow, for example, we have a LMS, right? So you can come in, you can look at videos, do training. We have support chat. We have PSMs, they're called Partner Success Managers. If you're large enough, you get your own Partner Success Manager that will actually work in your business, that will have a desk in your shop, and then will work there full time. And we pay for that. If you're like an enterprise account. If you're smaller than that, you still get one assigned to you, and they'll come out and do monthly or quarterly visits with you. But they're always accessible to you, and you can have their cell phone. But the part that we have found that is really required for any software, regardless if it's Enerflow or not, you need to have a software champion. You need to have someone that on your side that espouses it, that understands it, that owns it, and that can push it. And if you don't have that person, you can have the best software in the world, and it will do a hill of beans. It will do nothing for your business, because what will happen is you won't adopt it and implement it in your business and sales and fulfillment culture. And if you don't implement it, then it's like it's never there. And all you're now is incurring another cost. And then you're like, well, I'm just going to go back to whiteboard and spreadsheet because no one's using this. And the reason why they're not using it, I shouldn't say 100%, vast majority of the time, it's because you're not asking them or making them use it. Because a sales rep and other people are going to follow the path of least resistance. They have to learn something new and switch over to something new. A lot of times it has to do with leadership. And so being a good leader, and then also having the evangelists, I can't even say that, evangelists on your side, that product expert who will then own and push that. I think outside of what we can provide to with training and our support and all those things, I think that's key to any software endeavor that you're going to have.
Cool.
Yeah, and if I can tag on to that really quick, I think, you know, and I would say the same for Spencer too. Internally, we call our customers partners. We don't really refer to them as customers. And the reason for that is the relationships are very consultative. You know, as soon as you start talking about any sort of processes, it's a very consultative relationship of here's where I can help you, or here's where I can. And sort of like forcing that conversation with that champion of what is that end-to-end process and where can we fit our pieces in, and maybe I have to go back and I have to make a change to the product. Like that's great. That's great information for me to have too. So it is very consultative relationships that we have with our partners, and that's the type of relationships that are fostered. And that's another reason that you know, just Enerflow and EagleView just work really well together, is that we both really have those relationships, creating, you know, success for our partners, because the better they are, the better we are. And that's how we work with our partners.
Well, that's awesome. Thanks for that. So I'm going to see if I can sneak one last question here, because I think it's relatively straightforward, and it's, you know, probably think geared to you, Pete. Basically into accuracy of EagleView. if say there's a tree shading part of the roof or something, how do you get the continuous measurement? I'm somewhat presuming that the way that the photographs are taken and the pixels are put together, is that kind of the general answer there?
Yeah, so we have our image library dates back to 2000, right? So for a given property, we can see images of that house all the way back, in some cases, to the year 2000. Sometimes we fly when the leaves are on the trees, other times we fly when they're not. So we actually can refer to our image library in situations where trees are obscuring the view. So it's, that would be my general answer for that.
Okay, well, cool. Well, we are running up on time, so I'm sure there's more you could get on that. But here's all of our info. If you want to reach out to any of us individually, feel free. Happy to talk with you. Pete and Spencer, really appreciate you spending the time. Joe, appreciate you jumping on with us. So yeah, I guess just really appreciate it. Any last parting words that you guys want to throw out there for the group?
I know Spencer's going to say beads, but I
didn't have to do it. So
so I'll say thank you for the opportunity. Really enjoyed it.
Great.
Yeah, I had a lot of fun and appreciate it.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. We will announce our next AMA for next month. So keep a lookout for that. And until then, appreciate it. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Thanks.